It's another Manly Mondays, and we have a thumbnail now. It's Solomon, the social justice warrior, having a little dialogue with himself. This was made by the lovely and talented Eileen, the wonderful Eileen. If you need any thumbnail work done, Eileen is absolutely fantastic, and she works really fast and affordably. So, yeah, I keep having Solomon up here. We both agreed that Solomon was a good sort of access point to Manly Mondays because he's my male character. And the fact that we're debuting this on a day we're talking about male victims of abuse via the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, it's just the universe aligning, right? Now, some people have warned me about talking about this on YouTube, that videos of this nature are getting demonetized. We'll see. Okay, you can help with that by supporting this channel. Either monthly support on patreon.com, really important, patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for somebody who can really use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/Leanna K. We didn't meet our goal last week for the first time. We do have pad because of super generous previous weeks, but if you can help out, we can't have many more weeks where we miss our goal. But just saying, this came up in a lot of Leanna Care sessions last week. Men being really affected, triggered, if you will. I mean, yes, that is one of Solomon's catchphrases, but more on Solomon in a bit. But this came up. And it came up in a really poignant way with my woman clients. They expressed frustration about the whole thing. You know, I hate Amber Heard. Like, oh my God, she makes actual victims look bad. Stuff like that. That's what came up there. I'm just reporting, right? The guys, it was a really subtle, poignant, I don't want to talk about it, I just want to say it's a thing. And, you know, it was like, it's really bothering me. Do you want to talk about it? Not really. All right, we'll move on to something else. That's people's right to not talk about it. And I think it's a very important moment of support. I think especially for men, but I'm like this too. Sometimes I just want to say, okay, this is affecting me right now. Give me some runway on this, but I don't want to get into it. I'm an introvert, and I also have things I want to do with my life. And barfing my incredibly challenging upbringing in a rough neighborhood is not something I care to dwell on in detail, because there's shit I want to do, and I don't want that being an anchor. I don't like to talk much about what some of my experiences, because people do the I'm so sorry, and I don't want that. It happened. I worked through it. I have a ton of post-traumatic growth. I took it and I used it. I turned it into a thing that drives me to get shit right and to create a better picture, a better models, better data, better insights, so that we can have fewer people taken advantage of and more people get supports they need. I'm not precious about the way that's done. And I need to be a leader to do that. I can't be seen as a victim. And this is what men get into as well when they're being abused. Women as well. Like, the problem with personalities like Amber Heard, who, I'm going to say something potentially contentious, but I stand by this in this case, right? Unlike somebody like Rose McGowan or Ray Fisher or, people who just say, this was bad shit and I was abused, and they just seem to need to get it out and be validated. And it is like they're fighting for survival, or at least what's left of their sanity, right? And they're willing to go down for it. Like, Ray Fisher's like, I don't care. I don't care. you know, dude is angry and dude is hurt and somebody did bad shit to that dude. Unlike people like that, Amber Heard did use her celebrity associated with domestic violence or survivors of whatever her fucked up wording was that the Washington Post coached her on. She was using that to leverage her profile when the original Aquaman movie was coming out. That the timing was just so bad. It's so bad. It wasn't an unguarded moment in an interview. It was the purpose of an op-ed. So she did use allegations of abuse to raise her profile when she had a movie coming out, and possibly insulate her against getting dropped by, you know, Warner Brothers on the film when the shit she did came out, right? Like, you get what I'm saying? It's frustrating and it's maddening and it's in poor taste. And I wish newspapers would stop enabling that shit because it makes everything murkier. The minute the press gets involved in an abuse thing, it skews everything. And whether that's depictions in media that like neat and tidy victims of the week in something like Law and Order Special Victims Unit, right? Or these real life tellings, the minute the press gets involved, everything gets skewed. People start ignoring the data and the statistics. And they, of course, people are more likely to connect to something with names and faces and details because it's a story. It's a narrative. This is what our brain is designed to want to connect to, not statistics about who's likely to commit violence, who's likely to be the victims of violence. Because, I mean, I think the reason people are so compelled by the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing is it's a complicated situation with a lot of factors, and the media originally just picked one narrative that dumped out huge portions of data and told, to me, a less compelling, less accurate picture as a result, because they were trying to get the right narrative, right? Oh, Me Too, all this stuff. And this might have been pre-Me Too. I don't remember. It's been going on so long. But the media zeroed in on older, more famous, richer, more influential man, Johnny Depp. Younger, perceived naive, less successful, less money, woman Amber Heard. That's all they focused on. They did not factor in the addiction component at all. And up here in Canada, the US is still really behind on this, but up here in Canada, we treat addiction as a disease, not a character flaw. And we know that people with mental and physical disabilities are more likely to be victims of abuse and violence than the perpetrators of abuse and violence. But we don't see those stories in media, do we? Oh no, we get the sexy psychopath shit. Like, I give Moon Knight credit for this. They use the Steven personality, the alt personality in an adapted way. They've changed it from the comics some, but they use him to show the victimization that he's suffering because of his condition. The Mark Spector, who's the primary personality in the books, I believe. It's been a while since I read a Moon Knight comic. I love Moon Knight comics. But like, they don't center on the superhero guy. They center on the poor schlub with a really serious mental illness, right? And I thought that was responsible, because that sexy psychopath trope, and this is what I will not forgive the BBC Sherlock show for doing, making Sherlock Holmes a high-functioning sociopath. The fuck? You are taking the one type of person with a condition who actually is more likely to commit violence and manipulation and abuse. And you are making that, oh, this is what crazy people are like. Part of it, there's a lot of fucking sociopaths in Hollywood. But it's exciting, and then you can have violence and all that stuff, and then you have a villain that nobody feels sorry for because they don't really feel feelings, but then you've got heroes with these fucked up sociopathic tendencies too, and it's like, what the shit is going on? Like, it's Dial a Narcissist, right? And this skews people's perceptions of these things, because again, people get their views of the world from media, not from statistics. And part of the reason I wanted to tell Solomon's story that way is because he is a male victim of abuse, and I wanted to show a sympathetic portrayal of that, in part because I needed to create a sidekick and best bud for Princess Sparkle Muffin that made sense and would be like, there are a couple of adorable little precious moments figures, right? And so I wanted a guy who, is a warrior, but he's gentle. And then I had to create, there had to be a villain, and I wanted, the female bad guy to be actually bad. She's not completely horrible. She's tragic. Zarkazan's tragic in her own way, but she's a bad person who did bad things. And, I wanted that to be clear. None of this ambivalence, no redeeming the villain there. She did bad shit and wasn't accountable for it. Because I don't want to do what everybody did. I mean, Solomon is a deconstruction of a guy trying to be, with the sword and outrage, and, taking it on the chin, and I am this, and, the big speech, and he's got the helmet, but it's on crooked, and the whole thing. Fun fact, his cape was originally the cape to my Power Girl costume. You'll never unsee that now. But, I wanted to take that trope of the mighty warrior and invert it to the sidekick. And a lot of people identified with it, and I think we do need more examples of men that people like and people identify with and want to see win, that aren't the stereotype. Because when we get into abuse and we get into power dynamics, those stereotypes become weapons in an abuser's arsenal. We see that in the stuff that came out. I cannot say if it's accurate or not. This is me saying what people are responding to, not, I wasn't there, I don't know. But, this thing Amber Heard allegedly said that, oh, go tell everybody, Johnny, that you're a male victim of abuse. Who's gonna believe you? That, if true, I happen to believe it, but I don't know. I'm allowed to state my opinion as long as I don't state it as fact, right? But that's leveraging power against someone. That's the marker of abuse. That is the difference between an abuser and somebody who just loses their shit and makes mistakes. And, one of the things that's come up in the coverage of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation trial is this idea of mutually abusive relationships, mutual abuse. And I saw some people, I retweeted some stuff going, nope. And this is where we get into a fight of definition, and I cannot stand these things. These things make me really, really jittery because, yes, there is abusive behavior where we can, there's aggressive, there's wrong, and then there's abusive. And, there's hurtful as well. If someone hurts somebody, that matters. But whether they intended to hurt also matters, right? And whether they're showing enough care to be able to notice if they're hurting someone also matters, right? Abuse by neglect is a thing. But when someone is that calculating and says, go tell them you're a male victim of abuse, see who believes you. That's so cut and dried, straight up abuse. I think and I think a lot of people who have been abused have been in that situation, men and women alike, because that's one of the things abusers do. Nobody's going to believe you. And they just leverage everything. And what are some of the things they leverage? Past history of mental illness, prior mistakes. They use shame and guilt, and then addiction. We know this. You're a drunk. Who's going to believe you? You're a junkie. Who's going to believe you? We had someone working for us back in the day who was a recovering addict. And sometimes she happened to look enough like me that I could go in there and they'd think I was family. And all of a sudden they'd start treating her differently. They'd start treating her as a person who mattered instead of, oh, here's somebody in the hospital just trying to score drugs. It's terrible how addicts are treated by society. And we cannot look at the whole Johnny Depp Amber Heard saga without factoring his addiction and the fact that he was abused as a child by his mother. Because we know that's another thing. Traumatized people tend to replicate patterns from their childhood in adulthood. If you're abused as a kid, you're more likely to be abused as an adult. We know that too, right? That's why intervention is so important when children are abused, showing them that the system at least eventually works. And I have a very dear friend who, for him, the system did not work. And that's a big problem with abuse as well, is abusers of all genders use the system to abuse because it's that power thing. And that's why this idea of mutual abuse is such a problem concept. And I get why the marriage counselor said it in the testimony, and I don't want to get into the details. Here's why I would like that term to be taken out of vocabulary. Bad for each other, cool, right? Yeah, they were definitely bad for each other, right? Both sides made mistakes. Both sides were nasty. Both sides had things they need to work on, all fine. But since abuse leverages power dynamics, because abuse is the more powerful person inflicting that power on the less powerful person, you can't have mutual abuse because abuse comes in a power imbalance, right? Makes sense. But we have to say it because terms like mutual abuse get tossed around, and that gives people a really easy exit ramp when it comes to moral judgments, when it comes to deciding who you're going to believe. Oh, they were both wrong. And oh, they were both wrong is a tool abusers leverage. That, well, if I go down, you go down. Oh, who's going to believe you? Oh, they're just, and that tends to be what happens. It's like mistakes were made on both sides. I don't want to get involved. And so the person who is abused never gets validated, never gets told what was done to you is wrong. What they hear is, well, it was your fault too. And because of the way the abuse cycle works, that actually perpetuates the abuse. So let's break down how the abuse cycle works so people know. Because this is, I think, there are so many things that are ding, ding, ding indicator of the abuse cycle, and some of the stuff that's, ended up on social media about things Amber Heard truthfully or allegedly did say. So, the abuse cycle works where tensions build. Frustration is a big thing. So abusive partners, they get frustrated, things get tense. The abused partner tries to placate. They get more anxious. They get super hyper alert. They try to mind read, predict, and people please. That makes the abuser even more frustrated because when you mind read, you tend to get it wrong because nobody's fucking Jean Grey. Interesting. Anyway, I got distracted. But okay, then there's a big blow up. Boom. Incident of abuse or violence, right? Name calling, property destruction, threats, controlling behavior, violence, manipulation. It's all about regaining control. Establishing and regaining control. That's what's going on. And it's always, you made me. External forces. It's not my fault. I can't help it. There's a big difference between somebody explaining why they did something to show that they identify the problem and they know what they have to not do again. They know what they have to work on, and explaining away the problem, justifying what they did because, I had no choice. You pushed me. You made me. The only way an explanation for bad behavior is okay is if that was wrong. You know how I say the Cliff Steele apology. I'm stupid. I fucked up. I'm sorry. People bring that up to me in Leanna Care sessions a lot. And I always make some laugh. Yes, it's stuck because, I made a mistake. It was a mistake. I acknowledge it's a mistake. Here's where the mistake was and what I'm not going to do again. I am sorry. It's really important to actually say the words, I am sorry, not express regret. I am sorry. Those words matter. Okay? Not I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. And that explanation of that's the I fucked up part, it can also be the I'm stupid part too. Like, oh my God, I totally jumped to conclusions and when you said that, I just ran with it and I didn't actually listen to what you were saying. I responded to what I was afraid it meant. You didn't say that. I fucked up. I'm sorry. See, that's how the explanation can be in the stupid. The explanation in the fucked up part can be, this thing set me off, and instead of going to take a break, instead of taking a time out, instead of getting space and regaining my center, calming myself, keeping myself under control, I didn't do the self-care. I didn't take the steps. I just blew up instead. I still have work to do. I fucked up. I'm sorry. That's where an explanation can actually show appropriate remorse and a real intent to do better. That's not what abusers do. That's not what abusers do. What abusers do is love bomb. They talk about how terrible they feel, how bad they feel, how much it's killing them to drama, right? Like, never I'm stupid, I fucked up, I'm sorry. I feel bad. It's all about them. It's the narcissism thing, right? And then after that, you're so amazing and all, and then the calm, the justification, and apologizing while blaming others. I'm sorry, but I had no choice, right? Outside factors to justify the behavior. I was just so stressed. I'd had such a bad day, minimizing the abuse. That's the I didn't punch you, I hit you, I slapped you, I didn't punch you, like that Amber Heard recording. Okay. That is minimizing the abuse, denying it happened. And then the big one, accusing you of provoking them. You made me, never okay. Unless it actually was somebody talking about how they felt they had no choice. Because, the gun to your head metaphor, right? And that's the thing. There's exceptions. And this is the problem with this information being available online, because even these elements an abuser can weaponize. There are so many poorly written articles on markers of abuse. Things like, well, it can include, and then a whole bunch of things that really rely on context. And so abusers just use those when they want to create the I was the real victim narrative. That's what they use. Because it may not be, this may sound strange. It may not be completely conscious that constructing these narratives. It is intentional. It is learned behavior. hurt people. And some people copy patterns they saw worked on them, right? In both as an abused person and then as an abuser. A lot of people identify with abusers because they seem strong and powerful, and they think that's what people are supposed to be. They don't recognize abuse for what it is. So, even though they know kind of, sort of, that nobody can really make you do things, you always have choices, that behavior is so ingrained that that's what they default to because they've been taught abuse dynamics, right? A lot of people are raised without self-soothing skills because even the term self-soothing sounds kind of sucky, right? It's, soothing, instead of, no, take a freaking breath. The way I explain it is, don't you start punching unless you know you can pull those punches the minute you can. Those sorts of fights are defensive. And the minute it becomes offense, you need to be able to stop. You guys know I like to brawl on Twitter. You guys know I am not afraid of conflict. But I need to know I am centered and in control when I engage in that stuff. I come out here and I make a lot of faces and I'm really dramatic for entertainment purposes. But if I am really rocked by something, if I am really thrown, I get myself centered. I get myself together before, because I did have some instances in the past where I did tweet while triggered and it blew up and people were not understanding and they didn't believe me that I was having a PTSD episode, and I was freaking dogpiled for it for, oh God, years after the fact. People would bring those fucking tweets up and no one gives a shit why you did it, unless you're one of those people that know how to build a narrative of, oh, the world made me, Anyway. So, the truth is abuse, and abusers are abusers. And while I know the statistics, right, I don't think that a solution to abuse is gendered, because abuse is something that individuals and groups do to individuals and groups, right? The power dynamics shift. They change over time. They change situationally. And we cannot use easy rote box checking to solve these problems. The courts are shitty at solving these problems. This is what has me so worried that people are really, really tied to outcomes with the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing for their own sense of self. And I'm really worried about that because this is a defamation trial with a jury. It's preponderance of evidence and burden of proof is on Johnny Depp's legal team to prove the abuse did not happen. Amber Heard doesn't have to prove he was a domestic abuser. He has to prove he wasn't. And it's all going to come down to, much like the trial in the UK, where it was actually the newspaper had to prove that their story was more likely than not true, right? And the judge in that case was like, well, Johnny Depp's an addict. He just blacked out, didn't remember, which shows a bit of a lack of understanding of how functional addicts function. But, can't change the past. But that was basically it. Like, yeah, you blacked out. You probably did it. I mean, that's how the system enables abuse of people with addictions, because of assumptions like that. Somebody with a different framing may have made another choice. But again, it was about what the paper printed. In this case, it's Amber Heard's own words. Heavily coached by the Washington Post, apparently, but there you have it. Even so, proving a non-event is very, very difficult. And I don't want people to get re-victimized if, the dice roll snake eyes. And I think what Johnny Depp is doing here, what it seems like the strategy, and this is just my opinion, again, opinions are not facts. He just wants the story to be told in its entirety. And that's what happens when people are healing from abuse. The shame of it keeps you stuck. And sometimes you have to face that shame. You have to face the humiliation. You have to face the derision to get through it. I know I did. The trusting someone enough to tell them what happened to you and have them not believe you, or worse, make fun of you and send you back to the abusive situation, the abuser, in some ways that's worse than the abuse. And I've gotten into a lot of trouble myself trying not to be that for other people. And I've supported guys who have been abused by female partners. I mean, a dear friend of mine, I had to go with him to an appointment to, he was documenting bite marks. And even that, the law's so shitty with this, because it's like, well, unless you've got video of her biting you, and it's just establishing a pattern. It's establishing a pattern, and people, like the least charitable version of Amber Heard's behavior, study this and replicate it. I mean, she was setting a paper trail while he was detoxing from a substance. And caregivers and all that stuff aside, that's ice cold, man. Like, maybe he did lash out. Maybe he did throw some stuff at her. That's why loved ones maybe shouldn't be the caregivers when somebody's detoxing, right? But to treat someone like they're in their right mind when they're very clearly not, I am suspicious of, because that is, again, you're not separating the behavior they can't control, which is why you need to avoid it. And after she saw that, why the hell did she bring booze and drugs into the house? That just baffles me, because it wasn't buying it for him. It wasn't strict enabling. She was consuming it. She was getting blottoed herself with her friends. Who the fuck does that when the man you love is a very serious addict? It's a fair question that isn't asked, right? And people, oh, well, you're blaming the victim. She did it to appease him because he was so scary. No. Partying with your friends, you can do that elsewhere. And you know what? If someone actually is abusive, one would think, well, unless it's like, well, he made me stay home, so I invited my friends over. All right. But he wasn't there when she was partying with her friends. I mean, the whole shit in the bed incident. But it just, and there are no perfect victims. And do I think it's completely out of the realm of possibility that he had some psychotic breaks and threw things in her direction? I do not think that's out of the realm of possibility. But mental illness is not abuse. And if someone is that out of their mind when they are in the throes of mental illness or addiction, it is very important that they get active supports to prevent that state. And anybody who is bringing, because even if the problem is drugs, if you bring booze into the house and somebody starts drinking, their inhibitions, their decision-making drop. They think doing drugs, oh, what could possibly go wrong, right? It impairs decision-making. It can lead to relapse. Don't have the fucking red wine drunk parties in the fucking house with him there. fucking hell. If you're going to have a party, clean that shit up. Get it out of the house before he's back. Be fucking responsible. Because if you don't, if you know someone's an addict and you're waving a red flag in front of that bull inside him, or as they call it, the monster inside him, that's abuse. Because then it's really easy to say, oh, he did all these things to me and he can't defend himself. Look at the UK decision. That's fucked up. You know, we teach, well, if someone's drunk, they can't consent. So why are you getting them drunk? And that doesn't excuse people who knowingly drink themselves and then become violent when drunk. Not the same thing. Don't you dare say I'm saying that. We're talking about somebody here who recognizes he has a problem, was trying to get help with the problem, and people were... It's sabotaging behavior, which is a form of abuse. It is a form of emotional abuse. It is actually, in some ways, physical abuse, because you're bringing something in that's going to hurt the other person, and you know they can't resist it. That's not okay. Like that there we can isolate and go, that's not cool. And unfortunately, it's going to come down to the question of, well, did she defame him? She didn't name him in the article, which is another issue that could go against him. If he did get violent a couple times and he was out of his mind, does that make her, and she did the same thing to him, can she still claim she's a victim of domestic violence? These are subjectivities, right? And this is why I don't want people needing a particular outcome here, because you can't control it. And it's going to come down to a very subjective decision of a jury who has their own baggage. What happens to Johnny Depp does not change, does not improve, does not disprove, does not invalidate what happened to you. And we need to create spaces for men especially to feel comfortable talking about what happened to them, or just saying something happened to them and sitting with that and not having to describe it in detail. We need to create space for people to heal so that they don't feel like they're trying to heal vicariously through a celebrity. I'm open to suggestions about how to do that. I've thought of doing some sort of online, like almost group things. I don't know. You know, anonymity and I mean, maybe chat is a way of doing it. I don't know. I'm open to suggestions. I do think we need to do something about this. This is something I can do. Right? I can facilitate these situations. I mean, I'm doing the one-on-ones, but you know, I can only see 16 people a week right now, and we're up to something like 14. But I'm open to suggestions. Let's talk. Let's figure this out. Let's find a community solution, because the courts aren't the way to do it. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Cares session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. This has been Manly Mondays. Thanks for watching.